From there, we start with our third step prayer. Ron?
Okay, on page 63 of your big book, everybody. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Thank you, Rob. All right, we are on page 144, but we're going to back up just slightly to the very bottom of page 143, and we'll get started there.
Okay, page 143, everybody. To return to the subject matter of this book, it contains full suggestions by which the employee may solve his problem. To you, some of the ideas which it contains are novel. Perhaps you are not quite in sympathy with the approach we suggest. By no means do we offer it as the last word on the subject. But so far as we are concerned, it has worked with us. After all, are you not looking for results rather than methods? Whether your employee likes it or not, he will learn the grim truth about alcoholism. This won't hurt him a bit, even though he does not go for this remedy.
Yeah, well, basically trying to just convince the employer that this is good information. It's knowledge that can in fact improve the bottom line, because if you know how to deal with people that are suffering from alcoholism, then you can work with them in ways that can be beneficial to both them and to the business and your organization. So anyway, that's where we are right now with the employers. We're just basically looking at and what the results can be of applying some of the methods, the process, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Bob?
Yeah. The only thing I'll throw this is what has worked for the first 100 people and worked for thousands of other people afterwards. We know they haven't changed this program. Why have they not changed this program? Because it works. So if you can find another method, by all means, our hats are off to you. But we know that this method has worked for thousands of alcoholics. We suggest you draw the book to the attention of the doctor who is to attend your patient during treatment. If the book is read the moment the patient is able, while acutely depressed, realization of his condition may come to him.
So a couple of things here. First of all, this is just somebody that's working with an employee that has gone in for treatment. And this is where the employer is essentially trying to guide the doctor that is a part of this in the direction of the program. Now, in today's, seems to me that a lot of programs or a lot of treatment centers already are familiar with the book and with the program. But, some are based on the 12 steps and the programs of Alcoholics Anonymous, but others actually just use it as a subtle guide, and in some cases not at all. But this is just one of those areas where it's just basically, again, suggesting to the employer what they might do to assist the employee with the program and those that are in charge of helping. Rob?
We hope the doctor will tell the patient the truth about his condition, whatever that happens to be. When the man is presented with this volume, it is best that no one tell him he must abide by its suggestions. The man must decide for himself.
It's an important message. You can't force this in any way. All you can do is use it as a suggestion and use the examples of yourself. If you happen to be an alcoholic that has been successful with the program, or get them in touch with people that have. Rob?
Yep. Sorry, one second. Okay. You are betting, of course, that your changed attitude plus the contents of this book will turn the trick. In some cases it will, and in others it may not. But we think that if you persevere, the percentage of successes will gratify you. But we think that if you persevere, the percentage of successes will gratify you. As our work spreads and our numbers increase, we hope your employees may be put in personal contact with some of us. Meanwhile, we are sure a great deal can be accomplished by the use of this book alone.
You know, back in the 30s and 40s, there wasn't a lot of groups. There wasn't a lot of people that were essentially like we are today in the thousands upon thousands of people. You know, you can readily reach out today and find somebody that has been successful with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, whereas back then you couldn't. And a lot of people, they say, got sober just with this book alone. I think that's something that we today would look at and be very cautious of, but at the same time, they did in fact get sober by using this book alone. And in some cases today, an individual can really jump into something like this and find themselves getting sober with just reading this book. It's good to have the assistance, it's good to have the guidance, and it's good to have the suggestions. I think again, we are just looking at this as being some resources that are available, strong resources that are available to the individual.
I love the way they put this here. As our work spreads and our numbers increase, we hope your employees may be put in personal contact with some of us. Now, we know that since 1939, when the book was first published, things have changed drastically. There are meetings in neighborhoods. I could go to maybe 10 or 12 meetings every night, close to my house, not that far. When this book was published, that wasn't the case. There were 3 meetings going on. We can meet people. We have to share this message that we have been so freely given. You know, we can't rest on our laurels. We have to present this message to the people. There are so many people that have been in and out of the fellowship not getting this information. You know, they're told, you know, put the plug in the jug, you know, take it one day at a time. Acceptance is the answer to all your problems. Well, that sounds good. But for the real alcoholic, they need to know about the 12 steps. They need to have a spiritual experience. They need to change the way they think and the way they act about things in life. So we have to carry that message. It is important that we go to the newcomer and say, if you are really serious, I have an answer for you. It is in the 12 steps. By taking the 12 steps, not taking 3 steps, not taking 4, not taking 5, doing all 12 steps, then we can change. Okay. And as I say, and I cannot repeat enough, we who have done all this need to carry that. On your employee's return, talk with him. Ask him if he thinks he has the answer. If he feels free to discuss his problems with you. If he knows you understand and will not be upset by anything he wishes to say, he will probably be off to a fast start.
Yeah, quickly, it's essentially just basic questions. This is part of those the different types of questions I think that is important here, whether they be closed-ended questions, open questions, or high-gain questions, that you're going to be trying to open the door to get your employee to start to talk about their situation and to share with you kind of where they are and how they're doing. If you are somebody that is well-versed in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, this is actually a good thing, and you can provide a lot of assistance with that. Now, if they don't feel like talking, making yourself available in any case is also just as important and something that you would want to do. Rob?
Beautifully put, Leo. In this connection, you will remain undisturbed if the man proceeds to tell you shocking things. He may, for example, reveal that he has padded his expense account or that he has planned to take your best customers away from you. In fact, he may say almost anything if he has accepted our solution, which, as you know, demands rigorous honesty. Can you charge this off as you would a bad account and start fresh with him? If he owes you money, you may wish to make terms.
Yeah, this is essentially, again, one of those situations where it's difficult, and you're going to have to maneuver it very, very well with a lot of sensitivity. if they are in fact admitting to you that they've done something, or we're planning to do something that's going to be negative to the company, it's something that you're going to want to take and assess whether or not you're going to have to make, some type of decision that either is good or not so good for the employee. Hopefully, this is not the case, but if it is, you can decide based on the severity of what they might be sharing with you, what is the next steps to be taking. But on the flip side, the fact that they're being rigorously honest with you is also just as important. And in order for them to fully recover, this program demands that. Rob?
Yeah, I know this says to employers. I always take this chapter as to sponsees, a sponsor-sponsee relationship, and that's how I think about it, because I'm not an employer. And so everything that they talk about here, I think about, well, if a sponsee told me something that would really upset me, well, can I handle it? And we have to be ready to hear some things that we just don't expect to hear from certain people, and please take that in mind. Remember, it says right here on page 145, demands rigorous honesty. Okay, they have to be honest with us and be able to be honest with us, or else we can't help them. Okay, we must get honest with ourselves, page 58, constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves and how it works. If he owes you money, you may wish to make terms. Okay, that's an amends process right there. If he speaks of his home situation, you can undoubtedly make helpful suggestions. Can he talk frankly with you, so long as he does not bear business tales or criticize his associates? With this kind of employee, such an attitude will command undying loyalty.
Yeah, it may be difficult. At the same time, there's some messages in here. One is that even if they are being rigorously honest, one thing that there are some rules of the road, if you will. Basically, not talking about criticizing other associates, because that's pointing the finger in the wrong direction. Remember, we're talking about the individual and the individual's issues and challenges and problems, not somebody else's. So part of that is something that you as an employer or a sponsor can help guide your employee or sponsee in the right direction. Right.
Yeah, and as a sponsor, one of the sponsee's greatest problems is home situation usually, and so they're going to talk a lot about, how can I deal with this problem? How can I deal with that problem? So we have to be open to these things, and, sometimes we have the answers and sometimes we don't. That's why we have other people within the fellowships that we can go to and ask, this is going on, how can I deal with that? Sometimes we have to refer our sponsees to other people, because they can get some help. People that are married a long time, been married 42 years. And you know what? How did I last 42 years? Well, that can help some people. We use our greatest assets, to advantage here, and to help out these people that are going through a tough time. Remember, when we quit drinking, that's just the beginning. Life starts changing for us. We become more involved in the home life. We had talked about that in the previous chapter. His father now wants to wear the trousers well and become involved in the family life. So many changes are going on in the person's life that we have to be ready to try to help them out. But with this kind of employee, such an attitude will command undying love. Remember, as a sponsor, we are not trying to get undying love and loyalty from these people. All we are there is to help them get their spiritual experience and have them come to rely on God, not on a sponsor. The great enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, fear, and frustration. Whenever men are gathered together in business, there will be rivalries, and arising out of these, a certain amount of office politics. Sometimes we alcoholics have an idea that people are trying to pull us down. Often this is not so at all. But sometimes their drinking will be used politically.
Yeah, business is kind of a competitive atmosphere, or at least it should be, to some extent, some competition in there. I mean, after all, we're looking for profits and for growth. So depending on the situation, depending on the employee's position within the company, there might be some people that use this information, which should be private, should be confidential, but it at the same time may not be, especially if somebody's been gone to treatment for a period of time. It just happens that people will figure things out. But using that against the individual is obviously going to be something that you want to say no to and work hard to avoid this. At the same time, you don't want to be playing favorites, but you also don't want to support or allow negative things to happen to the employee either. That type of problem can fester, and if it's allowed to prevail, then it's going to permeate into other areas of the business, and the politics can be really destructive and disruptive to the betterment of what you're trying to accomplish as a business. Having said that, I think it's almost impossible to avoid some politics, but if you don't support it and you try your best to continue to go into a positive direction, then most employees will follow. But in this case, what we're trying to do is just basically shield and support, or protect, I think is probably a good word, the employee that might be the alcoholic, and at the same time watching some of the bad things that might happen because of their situation. Rob?
Yeah, and office politics and AA politics are not that much different. Remember when we go into the fellowship and people talk about others? It starts off as a joke, or, some people talk about other people. We have to protect sponsees from this type of nonsense, because it will chase them away. They will stop coming around. They're here to get help and to feel comfortable and to feel safe. If they do not feel safe, we have not done our job. Okay? It is our responsibility to make everybody feel safe, comfortable, and secure in this environment. Okay? In some meetings, we have Zoom bombers. And what happens is that they put nasty things in the chat. And when they put things in the chat directly to a person, that makes them feel uncomfortable. Okay? So as a co-host or as a host, it's our job is to try to limit that, to let you know that you are safe in this environment, and that person, whoever is doing it, we apologize for it, and we will remove them. It's up to you to let us know that that's happening. So if you don't let us know that you're getting nasty messages, we can't remove that person because we don't see those messages going through to you. So it's a give and take. Okay. So if we hear people gossiping or saying bad things about another person, it is up to us to stop it at that point. Okay. If somebody, if you give your fifth step with somebody and they start blabbing it all over the fellowship, you're not going to feel comfortable. That person, that sponsor, needs to be told that is inappropriate behavior. They should already know better. But sometimes things fall through the cracks, as they say. Okay, so but it's our job to make the newcomer and everybody else feel safer within a meeting. And what they say is going to stay there. It's not going to be blabbed all over the place. So please make sure that we're protecting everybody, because what happens is resentments get built up. And what is the number one offender of alcohol? Resentment. Cuts us off from God, can send us right back out. So please keep that in mind. One instance comes to mind in which a malicious individual was always making friendly little joke about an alcoholic drinking exploits. In this way was shyly hearing tales. In another case, an alcoholic was sent to a hospital for treatment. Only a few knew of it at first, but within a short time, it was billboarded throughout the entire company. Naturally, this sort of thing decreased the man's chance of recovery. The employer can many times protect the victim from this kind of talk. The employer cannot play favorite, but he cannot always defend a man from needless provocation and unfair criticism.
So a couple of things here, obviously with people joking about somebody's drinking exploits, and we've all probably been there and seen what might be talked about and how uncomfortable and embarrassing it can be. That can in of itself be a detractor from somebody's progress. And then on top of that, as everybody's just talking about the fact that somebody's been gone for a period of time, getting help and treatment for their alcoholism can be a problem where everybody's looking at the individual. They've changed their mind about the individual. They've got some impressions of them that might not be the most positive. All of this can be a detractor, and obviously putting the employee in a very awkward position to try and continue to be productive, but at the same time enduring this kind of talk and discussion, which is very negative. Basically what they're saying is if you are aware of that, you can step in and should step in and defend the process in the program, and to some extent the individual. And again, trying not to play favorites here, but the bottom line is you want to eliminate or at least reduce to a minimum any of this kind of discussion and problematic opinions of an individual, so that everybody can stay focused on what they need to stay focused on, which is the business and the bottom line. Huh?
We're on page 146, everybody. As a class, alcoholics are energetic people. They work hard and they play hard. Your man should be on his mettle to make good. Being somewhat weakened and faced with physical and mental readjustment to a life which knows no alcohol, he may overdo. You may have to curb his desire to work 16 hours a day. You may need to encourage him to play once in a while. You may wish to do a lot for other alcoholics, and something of the sort may come up during business hours. A reasonable amount of latitude will be helpful. This work is necessary to maintain his sobriety.
Yep. So we're kind of talking about steps 11 and 12 in this paragraph. The idea is that most people, when they become sober and they have gone through the process and are in recovery, find themselves with renewed energy, a renewed focus, and a renewed a renewed energy to do a lot of stuff. And out of that, you're going to find that you're going to want to try to pull back on the reins a little bit and get them to kind of have this work-life balance. And that's kind of what they're getting to here, is to temper the enthusiasm with a bit of reality, in that you don't want an employee that's going to go hard for 16-hour days, as they say here, several days in a row, just to find themselves burned out in a bad place and susceptible to falling back into drinking again. And that's kind of what they're trying to do here. Support the employee, balance out their lives as best you can from this perspective. Even as a sponsor, you can help do this, and get them so that they can stay focused on the right things, do the right things, balance out the right things, and hopefully continue with this recovery so that it's long-term, if not completely permanent, for the rest of their lives. Rob?
Yeah, balance. That is such a difficult thing to gain. If anybody can gain it, please let me know. I could use some in my life too. Overwork. You know, the thing is that we didn't become sober in order to spend all our time in fellowship meetings. Okay, our family wants us home too, and that's really important, is that we spend time with the family. You know, how many times, has the family said, well, you got sober and, you're never home. What's the difference between you being drunk and, and I never saw you. Now you're at the fellowship helping everybody else instead of helping us around the house. So balance is so important. Achieving it is the most difficult part, but we can't forget the fact that without our sobriety, we have nothing. We will lose everything else. So if we put work in front of our sobriety, we're going to lose work. Okay. So it is so important. And also working with other alcoholics ensures, okay, and reinforces what we need to do in order to stay sober. And that's why we do it. I love how Bill does his writing, and he always thinking step 12 in, help another alcoholic. Not feeling well? Go help another alcoholic. Life not treating you fair? Go help another alcoholic. You're feeling good? Go help another alcoholic. Good, bad, and different. If it's raining out, it's sunshine out, snowing out, whatever is happening in your life, go help another alcoholic. It'll make you feel better. Why? Because it takes us out of ourselves. And that is the beauty of this whole thing. Keep that in mind. After your man has gone along without drinking for a few months, you may be able to make use of his service with other employees who are giving you the alcoholic runaround, provided, of course, they are willing to have a third party in the picture. An alcoholic who has recovered but holds a relatively unimportant job and talk to a man with a better position. Being on radically different bases of life, he will never take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. One is that what Rob was just talking about, and that work with another alcoholic. It is absolutely true that it will benefit you more than you might imagine. And all of us, I think, that are recovered and have time under our belts probably can say that that work that they've done with another alcoholic has been incredibly beneficial. So what we're basically doing here is saying, okay, you kind of started your own little mini program within your business. You've got an employee that's recovered. They've been recovered for a few months, and you become aware of others that might be having some problems with alcohol. You may recruit the individual you've been working with now to go out and reach out and spread some of the news and the information that might be beneficial to them as well. Now, they do bring up a kind of a unique thing here, is that some junior employee that might have recovered here may be able to work with, let's say, an executive of the company, and in such a way be beneficial actually for both. When it comes to alcoholism and alcoholics, we don't measure and or look at people's stature or position in life as being a differentiator. It's not so that always somebody that is senior to somebody else, that's not the direction that it always has to go. And in fact, going in the other direction is just as important and just as good. So there's a neutrality with regard to alcoholics and working with each other, in the sense that their socioeconomic position isn't a factor at all. And they're making a point to say just that in this paragraph. Rob?
Your man may be trusted. Long experience with alcoholic excuses naturally arouses suspicion. When his wife next calls saying he is sick, you might jump to the conclusion he is drunk. If he is and is still trying to recover, he will tell you about it, even if it means the loss of his job, for he knows he must be honest with you. If he were to live at all, he will appreciate knowing you are not bothering your head about him, that you are not suspicious, nor are you trying to run his life, so he will be shielded from temptation to drink. If he is conscientiously following the program of recovery, he can go anywhere your business may call him.
There's a couple of things here. First of all, trust is important. Rigorous honesty is also important. If somebody is recovering and in recovery, and they call in sick, it's natural to wonder whether or not they've been drinking again and are basically sleeping off a debacle. At the same time, if somebody is following this program conscientiously, it's going to be something that you should not just jump to the conclusion that they've been drinking. They might actually and really be sick and unable to come in. Let's say they have the flu, for example. With that, I think it's important to stay positive in the situation. If they're following the program and they're rigorously being honest, they're going to tell you whether or not it was because they were drinking or not. If they're rigorously following the program, the chances that they're drinking are minimized, not completely eliminated, but are minimized to the point that you should assume that if they call in sick, that they're actually sick and not just sleeping off a drunk escapade from the night before. At the same time, if they are drinking again, then that is something that you're going to have to make some really hard decisions with regard to the company, the business, and whether or not the value that this employee brings to the company is important enough to keep or not. Now, as a sponsor, it's a whole different ballgame. You're not really in the business of hiring and firing, but at the same time, you are in the business of working with those that are really trying really hard to do what they want or what they need to do, and that is recover. And if they are, in fact, honestly trying to recover, then you can make a decision to stick with this particular sponsee. If they're not, and it's continuously seeing them drink on an almost daily basis, then it might be time to spend your time and energy and effort someplace else. Rob?
Yeah, we had talked earlier in the book, page 101, about that, we can try to shield the man from alcohol. But he'll come across, he'll go to the Greenland and come across a friendly Eskimo who has a bottle of scotch or a bottle of something. When we become sober and we have a spiritual connection, we can go anywhere, okay, where alcohol is being served, and it will not bother us, okay, if we're spiritually connected. Now, if we are not spiritually connected, or it's not very good, then we have a choice. Leave where we are, okay? But if we are spiritually connected, we can go to weddings, we can go to funerals, we can go to birthday parties, we can go to bars where they're celebrating something, or to go to bars to watch a hockey game or a football game if you're in the US, or if you're in the UK or the Netherlands, we'll go to a football game, which is soccer to us here in Canada. You can go anywhere, provided we go for the right reasons, okay? But if we are not on firm spiritual ground, don't go. Yeah, we have to keep that in mind. And the other thing is that how many times in the fellowship have you sat around in a meeting and you go, have you seen so-and-so? I haven't seen so-and-so for a couple of weeks. Have you seen him or her? And then it goes around the room. No, I haven't seen so-and-so. No. So that's why we get phone numbers. So we can phone these people and say, hey, how you doing? We haven't seen you at a meeting for a couple of weeks, and I'm worried about you. We don't say, we think you're drinking again. No, that's not the case. It could be that, for some reason, job has changed. They're spending more time with the wife and they're going to a different meeting. It could be all these other things. Okay, but let's show some concern and some compassion for people and say, you know what, if I haven't seen you for a couple of meetings, I'm going to give you a phone call, send you a text, check up on you, just make sure everything is going okay. I'm not assuming that you're drinking, but a lot of times people do, and sometimes that's all it takes is for somebody to show that they care, to get them back to the meetings. So please reach out when you haven't seen somebody for a little while. Sometimes all they need is somebody to show that they care. In case he does stumble even once, you will have to decide whether to let him go. If you are sure he doesn't mean business, there is no doubt you should discharge him. If, on the contrary, you are sure he is doing his utmost, you may wish to give him another chance, but you should feel under no obligation to keep him on, for your obligation has been well discharged already.
Yeah, and remember the program is for relapsers. I'm reminded of a couple of things on page 35, and that is, if we go back to there, all went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. So maybe there's some message there that can be helpful. We go on to say, to his consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He agreed he was a real alcoholic and in serious condition. So in this case, you as an employer are looking at this individual and whether or not this person is still bringing value to the company. We certainly know that that they're trying, and this if you're sure he's trying and they're working really hard, especially this is true for even a sponsor, you may choose to continue to work with the individual so that they can get through these sprees and finally get to the point of not drinking at all. On the flip side, someone that is only paying lip service, you can generally tell if somebody is really serious about what they're trying to do, and whether or not you would continue to work with them. But it just depends on the situation, the value or the lack thereof, and whether or not this is something that is affecting the business in a negative and or in at least a neutral way. And you can make decisions on whether to keep the individual or not. Bob?
Yeah, and Leo, what you said about Jim on page 35, 6 times they worked with him. Each time that he got drunk, they worked with him. Why? Because the guy wanted to quit drinking. It's not that the guy wanted to keep getting drunk. He wanted to stop. And that's what it's all about. If they want to stop, we work with them. We do our utmost to help them out as long as they have the desire to quit drinking. There's another thing you might wish to do. If your organization is a large one, your junior executives might be provided with this book. You might let them know you have no quarrel with the alcoholics of your organization. These juniors are often in a difficult position. Men under them are frequently their friends. So for one reason or another, they cover these men, hoping matters will take a turn for the better. They often jeopardize their own positions by trying to help serious drinkers who should have been fired long ago, or else given an opportunity to get well.
Empowerment. That's a word I'm looking for here with regard to you as the employer and your junior executives, handing them this book and giving them the opportunity to actually be able to carry the program and the message and go forward, to work with the individuals that are in their charge is important. At the same time, what they're saying is that these junior executives may have a closer relationship with the other employees of the company, and in a lot of cases might be friends, which in that case, they might be covering for an individual who is habitually late or is missing work or is on the job under the influence of alcohol. And all of those scenarios are a problem and can be very dangerous to people's health and well-being, as well as the bottom line and the value that they may not be bringing to the company. And so the idea here is that you can open the door for good, honest communication, and that is for the junior executives to be able to confide in the situation that they might be dealing with. At the same time, you're giving them a tool, just like any of the tools that you have for management, to be able to help deal with an individual that might be suffering from alcoholism. Bob?
After reading this book, a junior executive can go to such a man and say approximately this: "Look here, Ed, do you want to stop drinking or not? You put me on the spot every time you get drunk. It isn't fair to me or the firm. I've been learning something about alcoholism. If you are an alcoholic, you are a mighty sick man. You act like one. The firm wants to help you get over it, and if you are interested, there is a way out. If you take it, your past will be forgotten, and the fact that you went away for treatment will not be mentioned. But if you cannot or will not stop drinking, I think you ought to resign."
Yeah, this is one of those hard discussion conversations to be had, and under the circumstances, I think it's really, that determination as to whether or not the person is sincere and wants to really stop drinking and go through the rigors that are required, the work that is required in order to become a recovered alcoholic. At the same time, if they aren't and they are problematic, then the junior executive should make that determination as to whether or not they should be spending the time, energy, and effort with this particular employee, and whether or not to discharge them and let them go. The hard decisions, but from a manager and or leadership standpoint, those are the reasons why you're in those positions. And that is to make those hard decisions so that you can make sure that the company stays strong throughout. From a sponsor standpoint, learning of this kind of stuff is a bit different. So, and in this case, you have to just determine whether or not they're seriously in line to want to stop drinking and go through the program. So, with that, you can decide whether to work with them or not. So you're kind of at that decision point. It's a crossroads whether you go left or right, and whether or not you support and help and or decide that it's not worth the energy and effort. Rob?
Yeah, and I have a little note here that I've written. I don't know where I picked this up, and it might be from Bill. I'm not sure. Will nots do not want to stop. Cannots need detox because they are too far gone. So please keep that in mind. Your junior executive may not agree with the contents of our book. He need not, and often should not, show it to his alcohol prospect. But at least he will understand the problem and will no longer be misled by ordinary promises. He will be able to take a position with such a man, which is eminently fair and square. He will have no further reason for covering up for an alcoholic employee.
Yeah, again, that's opening up the lines of communication, making sure it's two-way, making sure that you have given the junior executive the ability to feel comfortable in sharing this information with you, and at the same time giving them the tools, as we've already talked about, in order to be able to assist the employee in their recovery if they choose to do so. We're just kind of continuing on what we've already talked about here, and it is a positive thing to have these tools in the toolbox and the ability. Now they do say may not agree. I think that it's hard to not agree with what's going on with AA. As with most of the book and most of the steps, if not all of the steps, they're not objectionable. They're just ways of living, and it's a positive way of living. So while you may or may not agree with it, it's hard, in my opinion, it's hard not to agree with the tenets that are included in this book. Rob?
It boils down to this. No man should be fired just because he is alcoholic. If he wants to stop, he should be afforded a real chance. If he cannot or does not want to stop, he should be discharged. The exceptions are few.
Well, so a couple of things. Obviously, we treat an alcoholic just like we treat somebody with cancer, with diabetes, with a broken arm. We give them a chance to heal and continue to be a part of the organization. Same thing holds true for sponsor-sponsee. However, if he doesn't want to stop, well, then that's your answer. When I say that these are hard decisions, there may be some emotion that's involved in it and everything, but generally it's the employee that makes the decision for you. And if you look at it that way, then obviously I think that the decision becomes a bit easier. And the idea behind this is if they truly want to stop and they really are working towards that, then that should be taken into consideration. But if they don't want to stop and they're not giving you any indication that they are desiring to stop, then there should be that should also be the message that you're taking and carrying forward and deciding to let them go. But I think this whole concept here and the few sentences in this paragraph, they broadly apply. So it's not, each individual case is going to be a little bit different. It should be handled as such. Rob?
And please remember, there are some people in the fellowship that will take advantage of your good nature. And they don't really want to quit drinking. They just want somebody else to feel sorry for them and to take on, their problems, and just somebody that will just bleed you dry. We want this for other people. Boy, do we want it. Sometimes we want it more than they want it. And we have to keep that in mind. Remember page 96. If your man or woman does not want to quit, move on. There are an awful lot of other alcoholics that can use your help. We think this method of approach will accomplish several things. We will permit the rehabilitation of good men. At the same time, you will feel no reluctance to rid yourself of those who cannot or will not stop. Alcoholism may be causing your organization considerable damage and its waste of time, men, and reputation. We hope our suggestions will help you plug up this sometimes serious leak. We think we are sensible when we urge that you stop this waste and give your worthwhile man a chance.
Yeah, really bottom line is it's that decision point. If they really want to work on becoming recovered alcoholics, then you can make that decision to work with them. If they don't, then you would want to discharge them and move on. It's really that simple. And that's kind of what they're trying to say here. Rob?
The other day, an approach was made to the vice president of a large industrial concern. He remarked, "I'm mighty glad you fellows got over your drinking, but the policy of this company is not to interfere with the habits of our employees. If a man drinks so much that his job suffers, we fire him. I don't see how you can be of any help to us, for as you see, we don't have any alcohol problem. This same company spends millions for research every year. Their cost of production is figured to a fine decimal point. They have recreational facilities. There is company insurance. There is a real interest, both humanitarian and business, in the well-being of employees. But alcoholism, well, they just don't believe they have it."
Yeah, and this is really somebody that's ignorant to the problems that are going on. They don't look at alcoholism as a problem that is similar to somebody that has cancer, diabetes, or say a broken arm. And the idea here is if somebody's work is suffering, then they just basically fire and let them go. In some cases that's warranted, but in this case, what we're trying to say is that you should probably take this under consideration and really evaluate the value that this employee is bringing to the company, and whether or not you would extend the same thing that you extend to well people, which is the recreational facilities, and or those that are sick and in need of medical care, which is their insurance. You don't just automatically fire somebody because they have a broken arm and their work is suffering because of it. You allow them to heal and to continue on when they're able. So same thing, and the message here is to allow the alcoholic an opportunity to heal, to recover, and move on with the company and continue to bring value. So don't be so quick to bury your head in the sand and say, well, we don't have a problem. If there is a problem, we deal with it by just firing the employee and moving on. The message is we're trying to get the employer to understand that that's not the right way to look at things, and get them to open their eyes and include alcoholism as any other ailment that might be ailing employees. Rob?
Perhaps this is a typical attitude. We who have collectively seen a great deal of business life, at least from the alcoholic angle, had to smile at this gentleman's sincere opinion. He might be shocked if he knew how much alcoholism is costing his organization a year. That company may harbor many actual or potential alcoholics. We believe that managers of large enterprises often have little idea how prevalent this problem is. Even if you feel your organization has no alcoholic problem, it might pay to take another look down the line. You may make some interesting discoveries.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that has continued today. Large enterprises, small enterprises. I think the percentage of people that are suffering from alcohol abuse and those that are alcoholics and or developing into alcoholics is a larger percentage than we might want to agree to. There's always somebody out there that needs help. There's always somebody out there that is a problem drinker, and it is impacting or affecting the bottom line of a business. And so I, I think that even I would be surprised to find out how many people are, as we say, abusing alcohol and developing, if not already, alcoholics.
Of course, this chapter refers to alcohol, sick people, deranged men. What our friend the vice president had in mind was the habitual or whoopee drinker. As to them, his policy is undoubtedly sound, but he did not distinguish between such people and the alcoholic. It is not to be expected that an alcoholic employee will receive a disappropriate amount of time and attention. He should not be made a favorite. The right kind of man, the kind who recovered, will not want this sort of thing. He will not impose. Far from it. He will work like the devil and thank you for it to his dying day.
And wouldn't it be nice if we just treated alcoholism as just another ailment and it was dealt with in the same manner in which the other problems are? I mean, we don't just continually talk about somebody that had the flu. We don't talk about somebody that had to be out because they had a broken arm. We don't dwell on it. So why would we treat alcoholism any differently? Now, there's different ways of recovery, different methods. You know, the idea for a broken arm is one thing, but to recover from alcoholism is slightly different as well. I mean, I'm sorry, it's vastly different, obviously, than just recovering from a broken arm. But the bottom line is that you don't single them out. You just treat them like any other employee. You try to get them the help that they need. And if they respond to it, then you can support it and keep the employee around. If they don't, then obviously it's just like anybody else that refuses to abide by the rules and policies and regulations of an organization. And if they're not bringing value anymore, then they should be discharged. Rob?
Today, I own a little company. There are 2 alcoholic employees who produce as much as 5 normal salesmen. Well, why not? They have a new attitude and they've been saved from a living death. I've enjoyed every moment spent in getting them straightened out. The appendix VI. We shall be happy to hear from you if we can be of help.
Yeah. So we're kind of finishing up to the employers. I think what Rob has put in the chat is a great summary of what is this particular chapter. So the idea here is there's 10 points that can be made in regards to the chapter to employers. And remember, this particular chapter is just as important for a sponsor and a sponsee relationship. And it really does bring home the ideas that is a good guide for a sponsor. I'm going to finish up now, and I'm going to bring Bill into it now, and we'll talk for a few minutes, and then we'll open it up for some discussion. Welcome, Bill.
Hey, hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. This chapter here, to employers, like was mentioned, most of us are not employers, so we could use this and we could call it to sponsors, because it doesn't matter who's working with the alcoholic, whether it's an employee working with an employer or a sponsee working with a sponsor. It's still a sober person working with somebody who's having an alcohol problem. And he just wrote this to employers because they were trying to enlighten the world on what's going on with alcoholism. And unfortunately, most people consider alcoholism and people that are alcoholics as being troublemakers. They don't consider us as being sick people. And they're trying to write this here and put this in this book to kind of enlighten the rest of the world, or whatever you want to call it, that alcoholics are sick people. We're not just troublemakers. And most of the time, like I said, most people think we're troublemakers. And he's given instructions in here on how to specifically deal with people. Today, there's a lot of companies that have these employee assistance programs and that kind of thing. But back in the day, they used to just basically bounce somebody if they kept getting drunk, because they didn't realize people were sick. They thought they were just troublemakers. And Hank wrote this, and he's trying to give some instruction or suggestions on how you can deal with somebody. Because back in the day, it was a lot harder to hire people than it is today. Today, with this pandemic, we've got a lot of people out of work, and people are looking for jobs, trying to get back into the workforce. back in like the 1930s, if you put up a sign on your business, help wanted, you'd wait a month before one or two people would apply for the job. It was just a different dynamics back then. So he's trying to give the employer a little bit of a opportunity here that maybe if you don't get rid of the person and you can help them, you're going to save money in the long run, because trying to hire a new person and train them for the job and have somebody that's already an employee train the new person, now you're paying two people to be there, it's going to cost a lot more. Today, you've got people that are already trained. You got a line of people, 2 blocks long applying for jobs. Today, it's a little bit different. So, today I wouldn't bring this book with me if I was going for a job interview and say, why don't you read this so you're going to know how to treat me? I don't think that's going to work really good. Everything's a little bit different today. But again, he's given some suggestions here on how to deal with an alcoholic and how to try to help an alcoholic. And one of the important points that they're making in here is when you're dealing with an alcoholic, whether you're the employer or whether you're the sponsor, you don't want to be an enabler. There's a very thin line between helping somebody and enabling somebody. You really have to determine whether this person wants to stop drinking or whether they don't want to stop drinking. There's some people that will not stop. And then no matter what you do, they really don't want to stop, like Rob mentioned. And there's some people that cannot stop. People who cannot stop need medical intervention. But there's some people that just don't want to stop. And they'll give you that line, oh, yeah, sure, I'm going to quit. I don't want to drink anymore. This is not working out. And really, they're just trying to get away with what they're getting away with. So you really have to be careful with people. And even when you're sponsoring somebody, if you honestly believe that your sponsee doesn't want to stop drinking, you're going to have to move on. You don't have to be nasty about it. You don't have to fire them and kick them, to the curb or whatever. You can just say, hey, this isn't working out right now. I'm going to have to move on. And if you change your mind and you want to do it a little bit different, you got my number, contact me again. That's all. We always want to leave the door open because we always want to be helpful to somebody. When you're in a situation of an employee, employer, it's a little bit, they have to be a little more hard line. If it's costing the company money and you're not getting any results and you're not getting better, they're going to get rid of you. And that's that, but so again, basically we can use this for helping other alcoholics. And that's really what this whole thing is about. All right. Thanks a lot for letting me share. That's all I got.
Thanks, Bill. All right, Rob, let's go ahead and close things out with the serenity prayer, and then we'll open things up.
You got it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.